2. The difference between Yvette Guilbert and everyone else on the music hall stage is precisely the difference between Sarah Bernhardt and everyone else on the stage of legitimate drama. Elsewhere you may find many admirable qualities, many brilliant accomplishments, but nowhere else that revelation of an extraordinarily interesting personality through the medium of an extraordinarily finished art. Yvette Guilbert has something new to say, and she has discovered a new way of saying it. She has had precursors, but she has eclipsed them. She sings, for instance, songs of Aristide Bruin, songs which he had sung before her, and sung admirably, in his brutal and elaborately careless way. But she has found meanings in them which Bruin, who wrote them, never discovered, or, certainly, could never interpret. She has surpassed him in his own quality, the macabre. She has transformed the rough material, which had seemed adequately handled until she showed how much more could be done with it, into something artistically fine and distinguished. And just as, in the brutal and macabre style, she has done what Bruin was only trying to do, so, in the style, supposed to be traditionally French, of delicate insinuation, she has invented new shades of expression, she has discovered a whole new method of suggestion. And it is here, perhaps, that the new material which she has known, by some happy instinct, how to lay her hands on, has been of most service to her. She sings, a little cruelly, of the young girl, and the young girl of her songs. That Demoiselle de Pensionnat, who is the heroine of one of the most famous of them, is a very different being from the fair abstraction, even rosier and vaguer to the French mind than it is to the English, which stands for the ideal of girlhood. It is, rather, the young girl as Goncourt has rendered her in Chérie, a creature of awakening, half-unconscious sensations, already at work somewhat abnormally in an anemic frame, with an intelligence left to feed mainly on itself. And Yvette herself, with her bright hair, the sleepy gold fire of her eyes, her slimness, her gracious awkwardness, her air of delusive innocence, is the very type of the young girl of whom she sings. There is a certain malice in it all, a malicious insistence on the other side of innocence. But there it is, a new figure, and but one among the creations which we owe to this comic singer, whose comedy is, for the most part, so serious and so tragic. For the art of Yvette Guilbert is of that essentially modern kind which, even in a subject supposed to be comic, a subject we are accustomed to see dealt with, if dealt with at all, in burlesque, seeks mainly for the reality of things, and reality, if we get deep enough into it, is never comic, and endeavor to find a new, searching, and poignant expression for that. It is an art concerned, for the most part, with all that part of life which the conventions were intended to hide from us. We see a world where people are very vicious and very unhappy, a sordid, miserable world which it is as well sometimes to consider. It is a side of existence which exists, and to see it is not to be attracted towards it. It is a grey and sordid land, under the sway of Eros von, it is, for the most part, weary of itself, without rest, and without escape. This is Yvette Guilbert's domain, she sings it, as no one has ever sung it before, with a tragic realism, touched with a sort of grotesque irony, which is a new thing on any stage. The rouleurs of the Quartier Bréda, praying to the one saint in her calendar, Sainte Galette, the Soulard, whom the urchins follow and throw stones at in the street, the whole life of the slums and the gutter, these are her subjects, and she brings them, by some marvelous fineness of treatment, into the sphere of art. It is all a question of métier, no doubt, though how far her method is conscious and deliberate it is difficult to say. But she has certain quite obvious qualities of reticence, of moderation, of suspended emphasis, which can scarcely be other than conscious and deliberate. She uses but few gestures, and these brief, staccato, and for an immediate purpose. Her hands, in their long black gloves, are almost motionless, the arms hang limply, and yet every line of the face and body seems alive and repressed. Her voice can be harsh or sweet, as she would have it, can laugh or cry, be menacing or caressing, it is never used for its own sake, decoratively, but for a purpose, for an effect. And how every word tells. Every word comes to you clearly, carrying exactly its meaning, and, somehow, along with the words, an emotion, which you may resolve to ignore, but which will seize upon you, which will go through and through you. Trick or instinct, there it is, the power to make you feel intensely, and that is precisely the final test of a great dramatic artist.